She collapsed, right there on the cold concrete floor between two prison blocks, just steps away from cell 4B. Warden Lisa Caldwell was known to be strict, sharp, and unshakable. But that morning, something was different. Her hands trembled as she held the clipboard. Her voice cracked when she gave out orders. And then, she hit the ground. Inmates froze, officers panicked. One of the nurses on duty screamed for help. And as the gurney wheeled her out of the gates she once commanded with iron authority, there wasn't a single dry eye among the officers. Even some of the inmates whispered prayers. The hospital ran her blood work twice, then a third time. The diagnosis was impossible to ignore. HIV positive, advanced. The doctors whispered quietly, unsure how to even tell her. And when Lisa heard it, she didn't say a word. She just stared at the wall, blinking like someone trying to make sense of their own reflection. But this wasn't just a tragedy. This was a revelation. Because Lisa hadn't been with anyone, not publicly, not since her divorce, not since she took over as warden 2 years ago. So how? That's when the name Marcus Dean came up, and from that moment forward, nothing was the same. What began as a quiet relationship behind concrete walls turned into a case that would later lead to 3 deaths, multiple resignations, and a haunting question that the justice system still hasn't answered. How did a man like Marcus get past all the red flags? Before we go deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Let's begin. Lisa Caldwell was 52 years old, respected, feared, a pillar of discipline in a system that rarely bends. She wasn't the kind of warden who smiled for the cameras or let her emotions leak through the cracks. She ran Oak Ridge Correctional Facility like a machine, efficient, clean, and without sympathy. She'd never remarried after her brief and painful divorce years ago. No children, no scandals, just her job, her prison, her rules. Then came Marcus Dean, 38, a new inmate with a quiet mouth and piercing eyes, convicted of financial fraud but nothing violent, kept to himself, always reading, always thinking. He wasn't the kind of man anyone noticed right away, but somehow Lisa did. Or maybe he made sure she did. And now here's what no one can stop asking. Was it love, or something far more dangerous? Did Lisa fall for Marcus because she was lonely, or because he knew exactly how to exploit her silence? How does a woman with so much control lose all of it to someone locked behind steel bars? Who was really pulling the strings? And most importantly, who ended up dead? And why? There were letters, dozens of them, some handwritten, some destroyed, a few recovered from an officer's locker, and there were meetings, late-night check-ins that didn't show up on any schedule. There was even a set of keys found taped under Lisa's desk. But those are just the fragments. What they left behind were bodies, prison gates slamming shut, ink-stained pages marked, "To my queen," blurred photographs of a crime scene soaked in red, and a funeral attended by people who still don't know what really happened. But someone does. And by the end of this story, you will too. Lisa Caldwell was born into structure. Her father was military, strict, precise, and emotionally absent. Her mother, a quiet woman who always said more with her eyes than with her words. Growing up, Lisa learned quickly that control wasn't just a skill, it was survival. Everything had its place. Emotions were folded neatly away like socks in a drawer. She followed rules like scripture. That mindset carried her into law enforcement, then corrections, where she rose through the ranks with clean records and unshakable discipline. By the time she became warden of Oak Ridge Correctional Facility, Lisa had built a reputation. Fair but firm, respected but distant. She didn't gossip. She didn't drink after hours. She didn't fraternize, and she never broke protocol. One officer once said, "If Lisa told you to jump, you didn't ask how high, you just hoped she'd tell you when to come down." She had no children, no pets, no close friends, outside a few colleagues she met for lunch once a month. Everything in her life was measured, clean, predictable. And then came Marcus Dean, transferred from another facility for good behavior. He wasn't loud, wasn't violent, wasn't dangerous by any obvious standard. At 29, he'd been convicted for financial fraud, something about embezzlement, laundering, and a Ponzi scheme that left dozens broke. He served quietly, made no enemies, took to the prison library like a monk in a chapel. He read everything, legal books, philosophy, history. He offered to help in the chapel, volunteered to organize files, and always responded with, "Yes, ma'am." The guards noticed at first how Lisa seemed lighter. She smiled more after he arrived, one of them would later say. We thought she was just less stressed, figured the new deputy warden was making her job easier. But Lisa had never been the smiling type. She started spending more time in Block C where Marcus was housed, said she was checking reports, said the numbers weren't lining up. But her visits were frequent, sometimes too frequent, sometimes late, sometimes unnecessary. One day, a trainee caught her watching the yard from the surveillance monitors. Just watching. Quiet. Focused. Her eyes didn't track the usual problem inmates. They stayed locked on one man sitting alone with a book under the tree, Marcus Dean. It was subtle at first, a shift in routine, a softness in tone, a slightly longer pause when she passed by his cell. No one questioned it, because no one imagined her being capable of that kind of misjudgment. But now, looking back, everyone says the same thing. She was changing, and we ignored it, because we didn't think Lisa Caldwell could fall for anyone, let alone a man in chains. And maybe that's where it all began, not in some dramatic outburst or scandalous moment, but in a quiet glance across a prison yard, where a woman who never broke the rules saw something in a man who lived his whole life bending them. What they both didn't know was that something had already begun, something neither of them could stop. It started with a note, left on her desk one evening after lockdown. No name, just 5 lines of handwritten poetry. The words were tender, aching with longing. In a place where time stands still, your steps remind the walls to breathe. Lisa paused when she read it, unsure whether to report it or tuck it away. She did neither. She folded it slowly and slipped it into the inner pocket of her coat. The next day there was another, different paper, different ink, same gentle tone. This time, I count the seconds by the sound of your shoes. Freedom doesn't always wear keys. No signature, no handwriting match on record. She told no one. Then came the inmate inspection, routine, scheduled. Nothing unusual, except for the way Marcus looked up at her when she stopped by his cell. He didn't flinch. He didn't speak. He just smiled. Calm, intentional. Lisa hesitated for just a second before moving on. The next night, she returned to Block C, said she was checking a pipe leak. 10 minutes later, she was seen standing near Marcus's door, speaking softly. He said something that made her laugh, a sound most of her staff hadn't heard in years. They began meeting during her night rounds, always short, always quiet, in the chapel, in the storage room behind the infirmary, once in the visitation room after hours. There were no cameras in those spots, just dark corners and whispered words. No one dared question her, but rumors spread like wildfire in the dry heat of prison walls. Guards started watching. Notes passed faster than contraband. Some said she was slipping him extra privileges. Others claimed they saw her hand linger on his during a routine search. Most just shook their heads. Lisa, nah, not possible. But prison is full of silence, and secrets echo. It wasn't long before the echo became evidence. One night, just after 2 a.m., the surveillance team recorded something that made the deputy warden freeze. Lisa Caldwell, calm, composed, untouchable, entered Marcus Dean's cell. She stayed there for 18 full minutes. There was no excuse, no report filed, no lockdown alert, just 18 minutes that would unravel everything she had built. And then, the tests came back. The collapse happened without warning. Lisa was in her office reviewing intake logs, just like any other evening. A cup of black coffee sat untouched beside her. She reached for a file, blinked, and then her body gave out. She slumped forward, face first onto the desk. By the time medical staff reached her, her pulse was erratic, her breathing shallow. She was rushed to St. Augustine's Medical Center under high security. At first, the diagnosis was uncertain: exhaustion, maybe a stroke. But after a full panel of tests, the truth emerged. Lisa Caldwell had tested positive for HIV. It was advanced, progressing rapidly. She didn't ask how. She didn't react. Just stared straight ahead, lips parted slightly, as if trying to form a question she wasn't ready to ask. Initial theories pointed toward the usual suspects: a contaminated needle, an accidental contact with inmate blood, maybe a staff member, or a medical mishap. Nothing seemed to fit. But then someone from inside the prison reached out. An anonymous report landed on the desk of Internal Affairs. The whistleblower claimed they saw Lisa late one night, burning papers in the maintenance yard, said she was shaking, said she looked afraid, and said they saw something silver in her hand, possibly a lighter with an engraving, though no one could confirm it later. IA launched a quiet investigation. They pulled surveillance logs, did a full security audit. What they found was damning: 27 unscheduled visits, all to Cell 4B, all without documentation, all involving Warden Lisa Caldwell, each one only a few minutes, some under 10, some nearly 20, but none of them justified, none of them reported, and all of them pointed to one thing: this wasn't professional oversight, this was personal. Then came the noise. Rumors of another inmate, Devonte Cross, claiming Marcus had stolen his woman. Staff said Devonte had been moved to solitary after a fight the week before. A red herring, maybe, or something more. And what about Officer Ray Maddox, placed on sudden leave? Rumor was he'd caught wind of the affair and tried to blackmail Marcus. One guard even said he saw Maddox pocketing a letter Lisa had left behind in the laundry room. No charges were filed. No one confirmed it. But Maddox never came back. Then, quietly, Lisa's longtime friend, Deputy Warden Rachel King, submitted her resignation. No warning, no explanation, just packed her things and walked out. Internal Affairs kept digging. Eventually, they were granted access to Lisa's office by court order. Her desk drawers were locked, but her coat pocket wasn't. Inside, wrapped in a plain manila envelope, was a small leather-bound diary. She hadn't written much. Most pages were blank, but the last 5 were filled with short entries, vague, fragmented, emotional. One name kept appearing, over and over again: Marcus.
Marcus Dean was removed from general population without warning. Guards entered his cell just after lights out. No cuffs, no shouting, just a quiet command and a nod. He was taken to solitary confinement, placed in a windowless cell with nothing but a cot and a camera. For 2 days he said nothing. When investigators questioned him, he denied everything, said he barely knew the warden, claimed she must have mistaken kindness for something else. But on the 3rd day, he broke. He admitted the affair. He said there were notes, meetings, late-night conversations about books, about freedom, about the world beyond those walls. But then, he shifted the story, said Lisa had pursued him, that she came to him, that she used her power to pull him in, that she was lonely and dangerous when denied. But the pressure mounted. Faced with the full weight of evidence, surveillance logs, burned letter fragments, witness testimony, Marcus offered something else, something no one was ready for. He leaned forward and said, "She ruined my brother's life." Flashback. 8 years earlier, Marcus's older brother, Jamal Dean, had been incarcerated at the very same facility. He was quiet, well-behaved, on track for early parole. But Lisa Caldwell, then deputy warden, had denied the recommendation. Not once, but twice. She cited poor adjustment, lack of remorse. Jamal had begged for a second chance. 6 months later, he was found dead in his cell. Suicide. No note, no warning. Just gone. Marcus never forgot. And now, sitting in a solitary cell with the weight of a scandal unraveling around him, he whispered what no one wanted to believe. I didn't love her. I just wanted her to feel what my family felt. To lose everything. So was it love or revenge? The courtroom was tense, packed. Reporters filled every row. Some came for the scandal. Others came for the fallout. Marcus Dean was charged with sexual coercion, smuggling contraband into a correctional facility, and attempted murder, after another inmate came forward claiming Marcus had manipulated him into delivering HIV-positive blood through a contaminated homemade tattoo needle. Lisa Caldwell, once the most trusted name in the prison system, was terminated without ceremony. Her pension was frozen. Her home was raided. She was officially placed under investigation for abuse of power and misconduct with an inmate. Her face, once known for order and control, now filled the evening news beneath headlines that read, "Warden falls from grace." But behind all the headlines, all the testimonies, and all the lies, one question still lingered. Was she truly a woman who fell in love, or the final victim of a man with a longer plan than anyone ever saw coming?
Lisa Caldwell disappeared from the headlines just as quickly as she dominated them. After her termination, she sold her house quietly and moved 2 states away to a small rural town where no one recognized her name and no one asked questions. Locals said she mostly kept to herself, shopped once a week, took long walks near the woods at dawn, never smiled, never spoke more than necessary. She was a shadow of the woman she once was. Then, 3 months later, she was found in her kitchen, alone. A single gunshot wound to the chest. Her body discovered by a neighbor after mail piled up for days. The weapon lay beside her, and the scene showed no signs of forced entry. Police ruled it a suicide. Clean, tragic, closed. But Lisa's sister didn't believe it. She hired a private investigator. What he found changed everything. Lisa's laptop had been left open, her email inbox still logged in, and at the top of her unread messages, one email, sent just hours before her death. No subject line, no signature, just a single line of text. "You took my brother. Now you know how it feels. M." There was no direct evidence, no fingerprints, no confirmed sender. The message had come from a burner address, untraceable. The case remained officially closed. Marcus Dean was never charged for Lisa's death, but justice has a way of finding its own path. 6 months later at Stonewell Penitentiary, Marcus was found dead in his cell. Stabbed 9 times, no weapon recovered, no witnesses. Security footage was mysteriously corrupted, only for the hours surrounding his death. Whispers moved fast inside the prison walls. Some said he had infected more than one person. Others said someone close to Jamal Dean had finally gotten to him. One guard claimed to have overheard an inmate say, "He gave people a sentence they never saw coming. We just gave him one back." No charges were ever filed, no justice officially served, just 2 names, 2 lives, and a trail of destruction that began with a suicide and ended in blood. And now, as the dust settles and the questions remain unanswered, one final question echoes louder than all the rest. If love can heal, what happens when it's used as a weapon? Let us know in the comments how this story made you feel. If you were in Lisa's shoes, would you have seen the warning signs? Do you believe Marcus was truly capable of murder? And if someone destroyed your family, would you ever forgive them? And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming stories. A respected warden, a calculating inmate, a deadly affair, 2 lives, bound by secrets, undone by choices. Lisa Caldwell stood for order, for structure, for law. She built her life brick by brick, rule by rule, until one man slipped through the cracks. Was it loneliness, regret, or something she didn't even recognize until it was too late? Marcus Dean was quiet, patient, observant. He knew how to wait, how to listen, how to speak only when it mattered most. But was he looking for love or revenge? On one side, Lisa in her graduation cap, hand on heart, eyes filled with promise. On the other, Marcus sitting alone in his cell, reading by a flickering light, unreadable, silent. So who was the real victim? Did Lisa abuse her power, or fall for a lie too carefully crafted to see through? Would you have spotted the warning signs? Was this really justice, or just another system failure, buried beneath uniforms and silence? Tell us in the comments. Do you think Marcus planned everything from the start? Or did both of them, at different times, in different ways, completely lose control? And if you thought this story was twisted, wait until you see what happened when a jealous ex faked her own death, just to destroy her boyfriend's life. That one's coming next week. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it.